Grim though their original purpose may have been, there is no denying that architecturally and historically there are few more fascinating sights than castles in their original settings. In a country like Britain, whose cup of history is brimming full, this calendar and the following commentary can but touch lightly upon the wonders and glories of these monuments of ancient chivalry. Framed by leafy trees and surrounded by lily pads, we see the grim, warlike strength of Bodiam Castle. Apparently floating, powerful yet somehow serene, this fine example of a fortress of the 14th century is in many ways unique. Two exceptional features of Bodiam Castle are that it has never been altered, added to, or in any way brought up to date since its completion, and it was the last great military castle to be erected in Britain. It's an ironical twist of fate that although Bodiam was originally designed to guard the Sussex coast against the French, the building was actually financed with French money, looted and plundered by an English knight at the battles of Crécy and Poitiers. In the 14th century, efficient drainage was unknown, and apart from its defensive purposes, the moat served as both a sewer and water supply. As it was fed by the river Rother, a small harbour allowed visiting ships to berth under the castle walls. After the Royalists defended Bodiam against Cromwell during the Civil War, slow decay took its toll, until Lord Curzon, that renowned benefactor of noble buildings, waved his magic wand, as he'd so often done before, and lo, Bodiam stood forth again, not much restored, but cleaned and generally made secure. Now its powerful walls can still remind us of the days when knights thundered forth to do battle in support of their king and country. One of the most fascinating, picturesque, and contrary castles in existence is Scotney. Although it's a complete contrast to Bodiam, they have three things in common. Both were built during the same period, both were built in the middle of a lake, and Scotney was also intended for defense against French invasion. There are two islands in the lake, and records show that the de Scotney family probably inhabited the smaller of the two as early as 1137. Completed about 1378, the castle had many changes of fortune and ownership. One interesting document tells us that in 1420, Scotney was bought for 200 silver coins by Robert Chichele on behalf of his brother, the Archbishop of Canterbury. In 1778, Scotney Castle became the property of Edward Hussey, whose direct descendant, Mr. Christopher Hussey, is the present owner. During the early Victorian period, a part of the castle was carefully taken down to enhance the landscape and to add to the composition of the gardens. Time and the elements have also taken their toll of the ancient stone fortifications. But even this blends with the beautiful surrounding scenery to produce a picture that can make even the hardest heart wax lyrical in praise of this lovely English scene. Glamis Castle came to the family of the present owners, the Earls of Strathmore and Kinghorn, in 1372, when Sir John Lyon married Dame Joanna, daughter of King Robert II of Scotland. Sir John Lyon's grandson was created First Lord Glamis in 1445. The Lords of Glamis and their sons have laid down their lives for their country through the ages. At Flodden, Sheriff Muir, Flanders, France, and in the present generation, North Africa. Each room in Glamis Castle is steeped in history. The drawing room, which we see here, has a very fine plasterwork ceiling with the date 1621. Many interesting links with the past are kept here, such as the Royal Stuart tartan knee breeches and the coat of the Scottish King James VIII, with his sword and silver watch, and the family jester's suit of striped silk with cap and bells. The picture at the end of the room depicts Earl Patrick and his sons in flesh-coloured armour. He is pointing to the castle with its double walls and 7 gates up to the approach. These were demolished about 1770 during the remodelling by the landscape architect Capability Brown. All that remains are 2 empty turrets on the lawn. Glamis has been associated with royalty for hundreds of years, and it always gives a proud thrill in the locality when the royal standard is seen flying from the top of this imposing yet beautiful castle. Of all the British castles, the great Welsh castles, built by Edward I, were the finest and most cunningly designed military fortresses to be found. No enemy could approach from any direction without coming under a withering crossfire from many different angles. Conway Castle was built to hold the newly conquered territory of Wales. And surely the sheer power and magnificence of its walls must have struck fear into the hearts of the conquered. These walls, in places 15 feet thick, allowed ample room for troop movement and manoeuvring of equipment, and were guarded from attack by 8 well-fortified towers, some of which can be seen in our illustration. Each of these majestic Welsh castles, as befitted the residence of princes, originally contained a stately series of apartments duplicated for the use of king and garrison. The visitor to Conway will see the tears of time upon its face. In spite of this, the castle has lost none of its ancient strength and dignity. The old, proud battlements still have secrets to reveal to those who care to seek them. Set amidst wild Highland scenery, the castle of Donan presents a picture of proud defiance as it stands sentinel at the junction of Loch Duich, Loch Alsh and Loch Long in the west of Scotland. Donan was built in the 12th century by the Scottish King Alexander II as a defence against Danish attack, and eventually passed into the hands of the great Clan Mackenzie, who became the Earls of Seaforth. In 1719, the castle was garrisoned by Spanish troops and was blown up by an English man-of-war. The shattered castle remained a sad ruin for 200 years, until Colonel Macrae, a direct descendant of the last constable, realized his life's ambition and restored Donan to its former splendor. If many castles are now romantic ruins, it was usually not gentle decay which brought them to that state, but the blood and thunder of warfare and the shattering impact of cannon. A castle did not seem in the least romantic to the men who launched an attack against it, and still less to those besieged within its walls. A visitor to this Scottish stronghold can still see the fortress flinging its banners of stone to the sky, much as foot soldiers saw it over 700 years ago. a proud reminder of the ancient Scottish king who built it and the noble part it played in the annals of Scottish history. Windsor is the largest inhabited castle in the world, and it has been the home of royalty since William the Conqueror commenced it in the 11th century. Set like a jewel within the high, majestic walls lies St. George's Chapel. This historic building is the chapel of the Knights of the Garter, whose banners are seen hanging over their respective choir stalls. Behind the stalls are the Garter plates bearing the coats of arms of nearly all knights who have been members of the order since its inception. There are roughly 700 in all. The oldest is dated about 1390. The unusual blending of the colourful warlike banners and swords with the calm, peaceful and holy atmosphere that prevails within the chapel is magnificently set off by the profusion of ornate carving in both wood and stone. St. George's Chapel, in all its magnificence, is aptly suited to stand as a symbol of the gallantry and heroism that was instrumental in forging the incredible history of our great country. We can think of no finer setting in which to end this tribute to the glorious castles of Britain.